A tiny grave stood nameless for 19 years. The stone read only Baby Boy, with dates marking a single winter day. The child beneath had no identity, no history, no voice. Only the cold earth knew his story. Then, in a fluorescent-lit laboratory hundreds of miles away, a DNA match flickered across a screen. The silence that had lasted nearly 2 decades began to crack. Investigators who never closed the file sat forward. A father who never knew he had a son received a phone call that changed everything. A woman who thought her secret was buried forever heard a knock at her door. What happens when time finally speaks? When science resurrects what fear tried to erase? When a community that mourned in silence suddenly has a name to whisper? Some truths wait, some truths hunt, and some refuse to stay buried, no matter how deep the ground. Before we get into the story, drop a comment with your country and the time right now. December 4, 2003, Conway, South Carolina. Morning frost clings to dormitory windows at Coastal Carolina University. Students shuffle across campus wrapped in scarves, exhaling white clouds into the bitter air. The temperature hovers at 32 degrees. Inside the residence halls, radiators hiss and rumble. Maintenance worker Thomas Martinez begins his rounds. He checks thermostats, replaces light bulbs, empties trash bins. His routine has the comfortable monotony of repetition. He approaches a particular dorm room on the ground floor. Keys jangling. The door is locked. He knocks. No answer. He unlocks it and steps inside. The room is silent, neat. A made bed, textbooks stacked on the desk. Nothing unusual. He moves toward the small trash bin near the bed. As he reaches for it, something makes him pause. A shape. Wrong somehow. He leans closer. Beneath crumpled papers, something pale catches the light. Not trash. Skin. Thomas stumbles backward. His breath catches. He runs into the hallway and calls for help. Voice cracking. Within minutes, police arrive. Officers secure the room. Yellow tape goes up. Students gather in confused clusters, whispering. A forensic team enters wearing gloves. They document everything. Carefully, they remove what Thomas found. An infant, a newborn boy, his tiny body cold, umbilical cord still attached, crudely severed. He wears no clothing, no blanket, just the plastic liner of a waste bin and the December cold. The medical examiner arrives, face solemn. She kneels beside the infant with practiced gentleness. She checks for vital signs, already knowing what she will find. None. The child is gone. Has been for hours. Detectives begin asking questions. Whose room is this? Where is the occupant? Jennifer Lynn Sarr, 21 years old, junior. But where is she now? Her car remains in the parking lot, her belongings undisturbed. Only she is missing, and the child is dead. By afternoon, they locate her at a medical facility. She checked herself in hours earlier. Hospital staff confirm she recently gave birth. She offers no explanation, no tears. Officers place her under arrest. The infant's body is transported to the morgue. The medical examiner's office is quiet, clinical, relentlessly fluorescent. Dr. Sarah Chen has performed hundreds of autopsies, but infant cases never become routine. Each one carries weight. This case is no different. The infant weighs 5 pounds 7 ounces. Full term or near term. Developed lungs, proper organ formation. He was viable. He could have lived. Should have lived. Dr. Chen examines the umbilical cord. It was torn or cut irregularly, likely without medical tools. No ligature marks. No signs of violent trauma. No bruises. No fractures. But the cold tells its own story. The infant's core body temperature suggests he was exposed to freezing conditions shortly after birth. Hypothermia set in rapidly. His small body could not generate enough heat. Dr. Chen estimates he lived perhaps 30 minutes to an hour after birth, maybe less. Cause of death: environmental exposure leading to hypothermia. Manner of death: homicide. The word sits heavy in her report. She signs the document, her hands steady, but her chest tight. She has given this child the only voice he will have, the voice of science, of evidence, of undeniable truth. Back at the police station, detectives review findings. The infant was alive at birth. He died from neglect and exposure. Jennifer gave birth alone and placed the living child in a trash bin during freezing temperatures. Then she left, seeking medical care for herself. The evidence is damning, but questions remain. Why? Why hide the pregnancy? Why not call for help? Why not use safe haven laws? Investigators request DNA testing. Perhaps it will lead somewhere. They submit samples. Then they wait. December 10, 2003. 6 days after the discovery, a candlelight vigil is held on campus. Students, faculty, and community members gather in the cold. Evening air. They hold candles that flicker in the wind. They sing hymns. They cry. A local pastor speaks. This child had no name, he says, but he had a soul. He had worth. He mattered. Heads nod. Tears fall. Someone places a teddy bear at the base of a campus flagpole. Others add flowers, cards, notes. The impromptu memorial grows. The media descends. Local news crews interview students. National outlets pick up the story. Headlines scream, "Newborn found dead in dorm room. College student arrested in infant death. Baby Doe case shocks town." The coverage is intense and unrelenting. Jennifer's name and photo are everywhere. The infant remains unidentified. Baby Doe, baby boy, the child with no name. The community divides. Some express sympathy for Jennifer. They see a frightened young woman in crisis. Others express only rage. They see a murderer. They demand justice. They attend court hearings holding signs. Justice for Baby Doe. Remember the victim, but through it all, the infant remains nameless, unidentified, anonymous. He is buried in a small cemetery on the outskirts of Conway. The gravestone reads simply, "Baby Boy, December 4, 2003. No surname, no family, no identity, just stone and earth and silence. January 2004. Detective William Morris sits at his desk, surrounded by case files. He has worked this case for weeks, interviewed dozens of people, collected evidence, submitted DNA samples. But the infant's identity remains unknown. The DNA results return. No matches in CODIS, no matches in any criminal database. The technology exists, but the networks are incomplete. Morris requests additional testing through genealogical databases, but options are limited in 2004. The science has not caught up to the need. He contacts Jennifer's family. They are devastated. They had no idea she was pregnant. She hid it completely. Her mother weeps during the interview. "We would have helped," she says. "We would have taken the baby, raised him. How could she not tell us?" Morris interviews Jennifer's friends, her roommate, her classmates. No one noticed. She wore loose clothing, gained weight but not dramatically, stayed active on campus. One friend mentions she seemed stressed in the fall semester, withdrawn, but nothing alarming, nothing that screamed crisis. The investigation identifies a possible father, a young man Jennifer dated briefly, but he denies knowledge of the pregnancy, agrees to DNA testing. Results come back, not a match. Morris is back to square one. He requests additional forensic analysis, fingerprints, trace evidence, anything that might provide a lead. But infant cases are difficult. The victim cannot speak, cannot identify their attacker. The evidence is limited to physical facts, and those facts lead nowhere. Morris keeps the file on his desk, even as weeks become months, even as other cases demand attention. This one bothers him, the nameless infant, the unanswered questions. He promises himself he will never stop looking. August 2005, nearly 2 years after the infant's death, Jennifer Lynn Sarr stands in a Horry County courtroom. Her attorney negotiates a plea agreement, not guilty of murder, but something else, an Alford plea. A legal mechanism where the defendant does not admit guilt but acknowledges sufficient evidence exists for conviction. Jennifer enters the plea to involuntary manslaughter. She does not say she killed her child. She does not confess intent. She simply accepts that the evidence could convince a jury. The prosecutor agrees. Proving intent is notoriously difficult. Easier to secure a conviction for a lesser charge than risk acquittal. The judge accepts the plea. Jennifer is sentenced to 10 years in prison, suspended to time served and probation. She is released with conditions, counseling, community service, regular check-ins. She walks out of the courthouse into humid Carolina air. Cameras flash. Reporters shout questions. She says nothing, gets into a waiting car, disappears. The community reacts with fury. 10 years, suspended, time served. It feels like nothing. The infant is dead and his mother walks free. Online forums explode with outrage. The prosecutor defends the decision in press conferences. "We secured accountability," he says. "We ensured a conviction." But the infant still has no name. His father remains unknown. His grave still reads, "Baby Boy." The case closes legally, but remains open emotionally. For the detectives, for the community, for everyone who cannot forget. Years pass. The file sits in archives. The grave collects leaves and rain and snow. Jennifer lives quietly, far from Conway, her name changed. The infant becomes a memory, a cautionary tale. But DNA databases keep growing, and somewhere, the infant's genetic profile waits. 2006, 2007, 2008. The years roll past. Detective Morris retires from active duty, but keeps copies of the Baby Doe file at home. He checks databases periodically. Nothing. Never anything. But he checks anyway. His wife asks him once why he cannot let it go. Morris stares out their kitchen window. Because nobody claimed him. Nobody named him. He died alone and stayed alone. That bothers me. 2010, 2012, 2015. Technology advances. DNA databases expand. Consumer ancestry sites emerge. Millions of people upload genetic data to find cousins, trace heritage, build family trees. Morris watches these developments with cautious hope. Maybe, someday, maybe. The grave in Conway remains unchanged. Flowers appear occasionally, left by strangers. People who read about the case online. Students who heard the story. Mothers who hold their babies tighter after visiting. The community has not forgotten completely, but the headlines have faded. Life moves on. Jennifer lives under a married name. She has moved several times, each time starting fresh. Each time carrying the weight of what she did. She attends counseling as required, completes community service, meets with her probation officer. She never speaks publicly about the case, never grants interviews. The past is sealed in silence. But in 2018, something shifts. Morris contacts the DNA laboratory. He asks them to run the infant's profile through newer genealogical databases, not just criminal databases, family tree sites, consumer services. The laboratory agrees to try. Months pass, still nothing. The profile is too degraded, too incomplete. Morris keeps pushing. He writes to national cold case organizations. He submits the case to forensic genealogy nonprofits. He appears on a true crime podcast. He refuses to let silence win. And in early 2022, everything changes. February 2022, a genealogist named Rebecca Hale contacts Detective Morris. She specializes in identifying Jane and John Does using genetic genealogy. She heard about the case on the podcast. She wants to help. Morris sends her everything: DNA data, case files, photos. Rebecca begins building a genetic family tree. She searches databases. She contacts distant relatives. She traces lineages backward and forward. It is painstaking work. Weeks become months. Rebecca maps connections, third cousins, fourth cousins, shared ancestors from generations back. The maternal line leads to families in South Carolina. The pieces start fitting together. She narrows the search, builds probability trees, eliminates impossibilities. Then, in October 2022, she finds it, a match close enough to matter, a potential father, a man named Ronald Woodham III. The genetic markers align, the timeline fits. The location matches. Rebecca calls Morris immediately. Morris's hands shake when he receives the call. After 19 years, after thousands of hours, after never giving up, finally, a name, a lead, a chance. He contacts Ronald Woodham immediately. The phone rings. Someone answers. And the silence begins to break. Ronald Woodham III answers his phone on a Tuesday afternoon in October 2022. Unknown number. He almost lets it go to voicemail. But something makes him pick up. A detective's voice. Calm, professional, careful, asking about something from a long time ago. The detective asks about 2003, about Coastal Carolina University, about Jennifer Lynn Sarr. The name hits Ronald like cold water. Jennifer. Yes, he knew her. They dated briefly, casually. It ended amicably. They lost touch. That was almost 20 years ago. Why would Mr. Woodham? We believe you may be the biological father of an infant who died in December 2003. We'd like to request a DNA sample to confirm paternity. Silence. Long and heavy. Ronald sits down. His vision blurs. Father, infant, died. The words do not connect. I don't understand, he says. Jennifer was pregnant. I have a child. Had a child. The detective explains gently. The discovery, the death, the decades of searching, the DNA breakthrough, the potential match. Ronald listens in numb shock. He agrees to the DNA test. He hangs up. He sits in his living room staring at nothing. He had a son. Had, past tense, a son who died 19 years ago. A son he never knew existed. A son whose entire life and death happened without him. He calls his wife. His voice breaks. She listens, stunned. They talk for hours, trying to process, trying to understand. The DNA test comes back positive. 99.9% probability. Ronald Woodham III is the father. The infant finally has half his identity, a surname, a lineage, a father who would have wanted him. Ronald cries when he receives the results. Deep, wrenching sobs. He contacts Morris. What happens now? Can I see the grave? Can I give him a name? He deserves a name. November 2022. With paternity confirmed, Ronald begins legal proceedings to claim his son. He files for recognition as the biological father, requests permission to exhume and rebury with proper identification. The court reviews the petition. Jennifer is notified. Her attorney contacts the court. She does not contest the paternity, does not oppose the exhumation. She remains silent. The judge reviews case files, medical examiner reports, DNA results. The evidence is conclusive. The court grants Ronald's petition. He is legally recognized as the father, permission given to exhume, to rebury with a proper name. Ronald chooses carefully. Ronald Eugene Woodham IV. The fourth, his son, his legacy, his family. He works with a funeral home in Conway, plans a proper service, a pastor, music, flowers, everything the infant should have had the first time. He designs a new headstone, proper, dignified, with a name, Ronald Eugene Woodham IV, December 4, 2003. Beloved son, never forgotten. The exhumation is scheduled for March 2023. Ronald cannot bring himself to attend. Instead, a forensic team carefully removes the small casket. The casket is transported to the medical examiner's office for verification. Everything documented, everything respectful. The remains are confirmed. They are placed in a new casket, white, small, heartbreaking in its size. Ronald is given the opportunity to view it before reburial. He stands in the quiet room, stares at the closed casket, places his hand on the smooth wood. "I'm sorry," he whispers. "I'm so sorry, I didn't know. But I know now, and I'll make sure everyone knows you mattered." December 2022. Before the exhumation, Ronald contacts Jennifer's attorney. He requests a meeting, not for legal reasons, not for closure necessarily, but for answers. He needs to understand. Jennifer agrees. They meet in a conference room at a mediation center, neutral ground. Ronald arrives first, stomach churning. When Jennifer enters, he barely recognizes her. 20 years have passed. She looks older, weathered, haunted. They sit across from each other. Silence stretches like a chasm. Jennifer speaks first. "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I need you to know, I think about him every day. Every single day. What I did destroyed me. Destroyed a part that can never be fixed." Ronald's jaw tightens. "You had options. Safe haven. You had me. You chose to let him die alone in the cold. You chose to throw him away. Do you understand what that feels like to know?" Jennifer's face crumples. "I was terrified. In denial so deep I couldn't see the surface. I convinced myself it wasn't real until suddenly it was. And then I panicked. I made the worst choice. And I've lived with that for 20 years. They talk for an hour. Ronald asks questions. "Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you ask for help?" Jennifer answers as honestly as she can. Fear of her parents. Fear of losing school, fear of judgment, fear compounding, until she could not think clearly. When they finish, Ronald stands. "I can't forgive you. Not today, maybe not ever, but I believe you're sorry, and I hope you find a way to live with what you did." They never speak again. But the meeting gives Ronald something unexpected. Not closure, but understanding. Jennifer was not a monster. She was profoundly damaged. That did not excuse anything, but it made the tragedy more human. April 15, 2023, nearly 20 years after the original burial. The day is sunny, warm, spring flowers bloom across the cemetery. Over 100 people attend, strangers who remembered the case, students from coastal Carolina, officers from the police department. Detective Morris stands in full uniform. Rebecca Hale traveled from across the country. They gather around the grave as the new casket is lowered into the ground. The pastor speaks about redemption and remembrance, about how love can reach backward through time. He reads the inscription, Ronald Eugene Woodham IV, beloved son of Ronald Eugene Woodham III, December 4, 2003, forever in our hearts, forever remembered. Ronald delivers a eulogy. His voice cracks but holds. "My son, I never got to hold you. Never got to tell you how wanted you would have been. But I hold you now in memory. I tell you now that you mattered. You were loved. Your name will not be forgotten. You are my son. You are a Woodham. And we claim you. Forever." Tears fall freely. People embrace. The casket is covered with earth. Flowers are placed. Teddy bears. Notes. The community that mourned a nameless infant now celebrates a named son. The tragedy remains, but the silence is broken. After the service, Ronald stands alone at the grave. He traces the letters of his son's name. The stone is solid, permanent, real. His son has a place now, an identity, a father's love carved in stone. Morris approaches. Stands beside Ronald. "You did good," Morris says quietly. "You gave him what he deserved, what I couldn't give him for 19. Ronald nods. "You never gave up. That matters. That means everything. They stand together in silence. Two men bound by a child they never knew but will never forget. Within hours, the story goes viral. National news networks cover it. Morning shows interview Ronald. Podcasts dissect every angle. Baby Doe finally gets his name. Genetic genealogy brings closure after 19 years. Father buries son he never knew. The headlines multiply. The story touches something deep in the collective consciousness. People share it on social media. Millions of views, thousands of comments. Some praise Ronald's grace. Others condemn Jennifer anew. Debates rage about justice, motherhood, safe haven laws, mental health. True crime communities dissect every detail. Amateur investigators comb through old records. The facts are tragic enough without embellishment, but the attention brings pressure. Pressure on Jennifer, pressure on the legal system. Jennifer, now living under a married name in another state, becomes the target of online harassment. Her address is doxed, her workplace identified. Threats arrive. She hires security, moves again. The past she thought buried has erupted. Her attorney issues a statement asking for privacy and condemning vigilante justice. It has little effect. The internet does not forget, does not forgive. Ronald watches the firestorm with mixed feelings. He wanted awareness, wanted the case remembered, but not like this. Not with threats. He issues his own statement. Justice was served legally in 2005. My focus is on honoring my son, not punishing his mother. I ask everyone to channel energy towards supporting safe haven programs and crisis pregnancy resources. His words are quoted widely. Some praise his magnanimity, others call it weakness. The debate continues. The attention slowly fades as newer stories emerge, but the case left a mark. May 2023, Coastal Carolina University announces a permanent memorial, a small garden space with a bench and a plaque. In memory of Ronald Eugene Woodham IV, may we always remember. May we always do better. The dedication ceremony draws students, faculty, and community members. University president speaks about learning from tragedy, about ensuring resources exist for students in crisis, about never forgetting. Ronald attends with his family, his wife, his other children. They stand together as the plaque is unveiled. Students place flowers, light candles. The memorial is simple but meaningful, a physical space for remembrance. After the ceremony, a young woman approaches Ronald. She introduces herself as a social work student, writing a thesis on safe haven laws. The case inspired her. She wanted to thank him for speaking up, for making something positive from something horrible. They talk. She shares that she volunteers at a crisis pregnancy center now, helps educate young women about options, about resources, about safe haven. Ronald feels tears sting his eyes. His son's story is changing lives, preventing tragedies. Thank you for telling me that, he says. It helps. It really helps. Later, Ronald sits alone on the memorial bench. Students walk past. Most do not know the story, but some do. And those who do pause, reflect, remember. The garden becomes a quiet place, a sacred space, where a child's brief life echoes through the years. June 2023. The medical examiner's office conducts a final review of the case. New forensic pathologists examine the original autopsy reports. They confirm Dr. Chen's findings: hypothermia, exposure, neglect. The cause of death is unchanged, but they note something else. The infant showed signs of being full-term, healthy, viable. He could have survived with minimal medical intervention, a warm blanket, a phone call, anything. The tragedy was entirely preventable. The report is submitted to the prosecutor's office. They review whether new charges are possible. The answer is no. Double jeopardy prevents retrying Jennifer for the same crime. The original plea stands. Legal closure is final, but the forensic review serves another purpose. It provides Ronald with complete medical documentation, answers to questions about his son's final moments, how long he lived, what he experienced, whether he suffered. The pathologist meets with Ronald privately, explains the findings with compassion. He likely lost consciousness quickly, she says. The cold would have made him sleepy. He probably did not experience prolonged pain. That doesn't make it okay, but perhaps it provides some small comfort. Ronald nods. Grateful for honesty, for science, for someone treating his son with dignity even in death. He thanks her, adds the report to his growing collection of documents. His son's entire existence contained in files and photos and memories. August 2023. A community forum is held in Conway, titled Preventing Future Tragedies, Safe Haven, and Crisis Resources. Ronald is invited to speak. He stands before a crowded room. Mothers, students, healthcare workers, advocates. He tells his story, not for sympathy, but for change. My son died because one person was too afraid and the system did not reach far enough. We must do better. Safe haven laws exist. But if people don't know about them, don't trust them, don't feel safe using them, they might as well not exist. The room is silent, listening. Ronald continues. I don't want revenge. I want prevention. I want every scared teenager, every overwhelmed young woman, every person facing an impossible choice to know they have options. That there is always a better way than what happened to my son. Local organizations present resources, crisis hotlines, pregnancy centers, counseling services, safe haven locations. Information is distributed, contact numbers shared. The community commits to awareness, to education, to preventing the next tragedy. After the forum, people approach Ronald, share their stories. Women who considered abandoning infants but used safe haven instead. Mothers who struggled but asked for help. Their children are alive because of resources, because of awareness, because of community support. Ronald listens to each story, grateful, heartbroken, hopeful. His son cannot be saved, but others can, others are. That has to be enough. September 2023. The South Carolina State Legislature convenes to discuss safe haven law amendments. The case of Ronald Eugene Woodham IV is cited as catalyst. Representative Amanda Torres leads the effort. This tragedy happened because a young woman felt she had no options. Torres says from the floor, we must make safe haven so accessible, so widely known, so destigmatized that no one ever feels they have to hide a pregnancy to lethal consequence. Proposed legislation includes mandatory education in high schools and colleges, anonymous drop boxes at fire stations and hospitals, expansion of the safe haven window from 72 hours to 7 days, increased funding for crisis centers, mandatory training for university health services. Debate is contentious. Some argue laws are already sufficient, that personal responsibility matters. Others counter that prevention is worth any cost, that if even one life is saved, the effort is justified. Ronald testifies before the committee. He brings a photo of his son's gravestone, places it on the table. This is my son. He died because the system failed. Please don't let his death be meaningless. Use it to build something better. The room is silent. Several legislators wipe their eyes. The bill passes the committee unanimously. It goes to the full legislature. After weeks of negotiation, it passes. The governor signs it into law in October 2023. The Ronald Eugene Woodham IV Safe Haven Enhancement Act. Ronald attends the signing ceremony. His son's name in law, his legacy and protection. Justice is not restoration, but it is the attempt to prevent repetition. October 2023. A journalist investigates Jennifer's current life. She lives in a small town under her married name, works a quiet job, has children from her marriage. Her past is known only to her immediate family. The journalist contacts her attorney, requests an interview. The attorney responds firmly, Miss Saar has served her sentence. She lives privately and contributes to her community. She will not be granting interviews. We ask that her privacy and her family's privacy be respected. Online forums debate whether she deserves privacy, whether she should be allowed to move on, to raise children after what she did. The opinions are harsh and divided. Some argue she paid her debt, others say the debt can never be paid. Ronald is asked to comment. He declines. I have no control over her life. That's between her and whatever conscience she has. My focus is on my son and the good that can come from his story. The journalist publishes a piece, not about Jennifer specifically, but about maternal filicide cases, about mental health, about fear and shame and systemic failures, about how justice and healing are complicated. The article is measured, thoughtful, it resists easy answers. Jennifer reads it, feels the weight again, the guilt that never fully lifts. She holds her living children closer, whispers apologies they do not understand. She lives with ghosts, always will. November 2023. Legal scholars and ethicists debate the case publicly. Was the original sentence too lenient? Does intent matter in cases of maternal filicide? Should fear and mental health be mitigating factors? Television panels discuss it. Prosecutors and defense attorneys argue opposite sides. Editorials appear in newspapers. Justice or mercy? When motherhood becomes murder, the complicated ethics of maternal crimes. Some argue that severe punishment prevents future crimes, deters others who might consider similar acts. Others counter that punishment without compassion fails to address root causes. That fear-based responses make things worse. Child advocacy groups weigh in. They call for systemic change, better mental health screening, more accessible resources, cultural shifts around pregnancy shame, prevention rather than punishment. Ronald watches the debates, feels conflicted. Part of him wants Jennifer to suffer. Part of him knows suffering solves nothing, changes nothing. His son remains dead regardless of what happens to her. He appears on one panel, speaks calmly. The question isn't whether Jennifer should suffer more. It's whether we as a society are doing enough to prevent these tragedies. That's where our energy should go. The debate continues online and in academic circles. No consensus is reached, but awareness grows, conversations happen, minds slowly shift. Change is incremental but real. Note, Jennifer was released in 2005 under the original plea deal. This chapter addresses public awareness of her current freedom following the 2023 media coverage. November 2023. As media coverage intensifies, the public learns details of Jennifer's original sentence. Released after minimal time served, living freely, many are outraged. How can a mother who caused her infant's death walk free? Legal experts explain the offered plea, the suspension of sentence, the realities of prosecuting such cases. Intent is difficult to prove. Mental state matters. The system balances punishment with rehabilitation. Online petitions circulate. Change laws to prevent lenient sentences in infant death cases. Justice for Ronald IV. Remember the victims, not the criminals. Thousands sign. Politicians take notice, but others push back. Mental health advocates, crisis pregnancy workers. They argue that shame and punishment drive tragedies underground, make scared women less likely to seek help. That compassion and resources prevent deaths better than harsh sentences. Ronald is asked repeatedly for his opinion. He releases a statement, "I am not satisfied with the original sentence, but I cannot change the past. I can only work toward a future where fewer families experience what mine has." His measured response frustrates some. They want anger, want demands for justice, want blood for blood. But Ronald chooses a different path, one focused on prevention, on saving lives rather than destroying more. The controversy fades gradually. New stories take precedence, but the questions linger. The discomfort remains. Justice is complicated. Closure is elusive. December 4, 2023. 20 years exactly since the infant's death, the community gathers again at the grave. Now with a name on the stone. Ronald Eugene Woodham IV. The memorial is larger than before, more organized, more meaningful. A local church hosts it. The pastor who spoke at the original vigil speaks again. 20 years ago we mourned a nameless child. Today we remember a beloved son. Time has given us truth. Let us use truth to build justice. Ronald speaks, his voice steady now, practice from months of interviews and advocacy. My son lived less than an hour, but his impact has lasted 20 years and will continue. Every baby surrendered safely through Safe Haven from now on carries a piece of his legacy. Every scared mother who finds help instead of hiding carries hope he never got to see. The crowd includes original attendees, students who were there in 2003, now adults with families, detectives who worked the case, forensic genealogists, advocates, survivors, a community bound by shared memory and collective commitment. Candles are lit, names are read, not just Ronald's, but other victims, other infants lost to fear and silence. The memorial expands beyond one case to honor all the forgotten, all the nameless, all the children who deserve better. After the public ceremony, Ronald stays late. Alone with his son's grave, he places fresh flowers, sits on the grass, watches the sun set. "Happy birthday, son," he whispers. 20 years you've been gone, but you're not forgotten, never forgotten. He stays until darkness falls, until stars appear, until he feels some measure of peace. Then he drives home. Tomorrow he will continue the work. Tonight, he simply mourns. January 2024. The new Safe Haven Enhancement Act begins implementation. Educational materials are distributed to schools. Posters appear in hospitals, clinics, fire stations. Training sessions are held for healthcare workers, teachers, first responders. Early results are promising. Within 3 months, 5 infants are surrendered safely through Safe Haven in South Carolina. 5 lives saved, 5 tragedies prevented. Each case is documented. Each represents a choice different from Jennifer's. Ronald visits one of the Safe Haven locations, a fire station in Charleston. He meets the firefighters trained to receive surrendered infants. They show him the procedures, the care taken, the compassion offered. No questions asked, no judgment given. A young firefighter tells Ronald about receiving his first Safe Haven infant. She was just hours old, healthy, Perfect. The mother left her in the designated area and walked away. We got her to the hospital. She's in a loving, adoptive home now. Your son's law saved her life. Ronald feels tears well. Thank you, he says. Thank you for being there, for making it possible for that mother to choose life. The firefighter shakes his hand. We remember your son's name. We honor him every time we do this work. Ronald leaves the station feeling something he has not felt in months. Hope. His son's death was not meaningless, could never bring his son back. But meaning had been built from tragedy. Lives were being saved. That had to be enough. February 2024. Detective William Morris sits in his home office. On his desk sits the case file, the one he never truly closed, the one that haunted 19 years. He opens it, looks through photos, reports, DNA submissions. And now finally the closing report. Case solved. Infant identified, father found, legal review complete, status closed. Morris has worked hundreds of cases over his career. Solved most, failed at some, but this one was different. This one felt personal in ways he could not fully articulate, maybe because the victim was so small, so helpless, so without voice. He drafts his final report, meticulous, detailed, leaving nothing unresolved in the official record. He recounts the discovery, the investigation, the DNA breakthrough, the identification, the reburial, the legislative response. Before submitting it, Morris writes a personal addendum, not for the file, for himself. Some cases stay with you not because of their complexity but because of their simplicity. This infant died because one person was too afraid to ask for help and a system did not reach far enough. The solution was always simple: accessible resources, destigmatized support. The tragedy was that simplicity arrived too late. He prints the addendum, places it in his personal files, then submits the official report. The case closes in the system, a digital file archived, a physical folder boxed and stored. Morris feels the weight lift slightly. Not gone, never gone, but lighter. He had done what he promised 19 years ago. He had given the infant a name, an identity, a father, a grave marked with love. He attends the campus memorial one final time, sits on the bench, stares at the plaque. I kept my promise, son. You have a name. You are remembered. Rest easy. March 2024. Ronald sits at his kitchen table, a blank piece of paper before him, a pen in his hand. He has been thinking about this for months. What to say? How to speak to a son who never heard his voice. He begins to write, Dear Ronnie, I call you that because it's what I would have called you if I'd known, if I'd been there, if the world had been different. Ronnie, my son, I don't know if you can hear me. I hope you're somewhere warm and safe and loved. I hope you know I would have wanted you, would have loved you, would have fought for you if I'd only known. I'm sorry I didn't know. I'm sorry your mother was so afraid. I'm sorry the world felt so harsh that dying alone seemed like the only option to her. I'm sorry for all of it, but I want you to know what's happened since. The law that bears your name will save other babies. Your death, as horrible as it was, will prevent other deaths. That doesn't make it okay. Nothing makes it okay, but it means you mattered. You still matter. I visit your grave every week. I bring flowers. I talk to you. I tell you about your half-siblings who wish they'd known you. About your grandmother who cries every time she hears your name. You are loved, Ronnie. Deeply, profoundly loved. I keep your ultrasound photo, the one the police found. It's the only picture I have of you. I look at it and imagine what you would have looked like, what your voice would have sounded like, what your first word would have been. All those things were stolen from us, from you most of all. But I can remember you. I can speak your name. I can make sure the world knows you existed and mattered. I love you, son. I will always love you. Rest in peace. Dad. Ronald folds the letter carefully, places it in an envelope, seals it, writes, My son, on the front. He adds it to a small wooden box he keeps on his bedroom shelf. Inside are the ultrasound photo, a copy of the paternity test results, a program from the reburial service, and a pressed flower from the grave. His son's entire existence contained in a box, but also in his heart, in his memory, in his choice to never let the world forget. Spring 2024, Conway, South Carolina. The cemetery is green and alive with new way. Growth. Birds sing in the trees. Flowers bloom along the paths. Ronald visits his son's grave as he does every Sunday. He brings fresh flowers, tulips today, bright and hopeful against the stone. The headstone is no longer stark and lonely. Ronald Eugene Woodham IV, beloved son of Ronald Eugene Woodham III, December 4, 2003, forever in our hearts, forever remembered. The inscription is elegant, permanent, a testament to love that crosses time, Around the grave, others have left tokens. Teddy bears weathered by rain, pinwheels spinning in the breeze, small stones painted with messages. Strangers stop by occasionally, drawn by the story, wanting to pay respects. Ronald kneels by the stone, traces the letters of his son's name with his fingers. Another week, buddy. Spring is here. Everything's growing. Your siblings asked about you again. I showed them your picture. They want to visit next time. I'll bring them. I'll tell them all about their big brother. About how you changed the world even though you were only here for a few minutes. He sits on the grass, leans back against the stone, watches clouds drift across the sky. He thinks about justice, about how it arrived 19 years late, about how it brought no joy, only muted peace, about how knowing is better than not knowing, but not by much. The pain is still there, the loss still absolute, but the silence is broken. The absence has a shape now, a name, a place in the family. He thinks about Jennifer, wonders if she ever visits, doubts it. He has stopped carrying hatred. It exhausted him, poisoned him. He chose remembrance over revenge, love over rage. It feels better. Not good, but better. A young woman walks past, notices Ronald, hesitates, then approaches. "Excuse me, are you Ronald Woodham?" Ronald stands, nods. "I am." She introduces herself, a nursing student, taking a class on safe haven laws because of his son's case. She wanted to thank him for speaking up, for testifying, for making something positive from something horrible. They talk briefly. She shares that she volunteers at a crisis pregnancy center now, helps educate young women about options. 2 women used Safe Haven last month because of information she provided. 2 babies living because of awareness. Ronald feels tears sting his eyes. "Thank you for telling me that. It helps. It really helps." She leaves. Ronald returns to the grave. "Did you hear that, Ronnie? 2 babies. Because of you. You saved them, son." He places the tulips in the vase at the base of the stone, stands, presses his palm against the engraved name. "I love you, always." He walks back to his car, drives home. Life continues, the pain continues, but so does the love, so does the remembrance, so does the meaning built from meaningless tragedy. In the cemetery, the stone stands. No longer nameless, no longer forgotten. Ronald Eugene Woodham IV, a child who lived less than an hour, who died alone, who waited 19 years for justice, for identity, for his father's love. The wind rustles through the trees, the flowers sway, the name remains, permanent, unmovable, restored. Some truths wait, some truths hunt, and some finally bring peace.